guest this evening, as we are taping a little bit later in the evening here, Dan Czuba. Dan is a chef in the Chicago area. He's worked for companies such as Pinstripes, Bowling and Bocce. That is also a large Italian bistro. If you haven't been there, great place to check out. Also, the Craftsman by Two Brothers, as well as Parker's. Is now a chef slash instructor at the North American Pizza and Culinary Academy, and is doing some fantastic stuff here. And I'm so excited to introduce you. So, Dan, how you doing tonight? Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Things are really good. We're super busy with work, and I saw your first podcast, and I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to reach out and just kind of talk about everything that we've been through and that stories that I have.
Perfect. Well, that's definitely what this is all about. And I'm ready to get into some of the stories, even maybe some of the stories that we had together as we did a little stint together at Pinstripes, opening up the Overland Park location. So very excited to dig into that. But, one of the things that we like to do on the podcast is kind of talk about what our beverages tonight. So what are you drinking on there tonight, Dan?
Ice water.
Ice water. There you go.
Out of a deli quart container, because that's legit what we do.
I love that. Yeah, definitely the chef life there. I'm living the manager front of the house life, drinking my sparkling water here tonight. So we are both drinking water, though. So we got you there. Very cool. Well, I kind of like to start out with people's why. Why did you originally get into the restaurant business? Why did you originally want to become a chef? And why in the world have you continued to do so after all these years?
Oh, all right. So a nice, easy question. But so when I was younger, cooking was around my family a lot. I remember spending, the holidays, my grandma's cabin up in Lake Geneva, making what we call these P-dogs, these bacon, onion, ham rolls, and, the whole festivities of it. And then as I grew older and school wasn't exactly my strongest subject, I was drawn to a couple cooking classes, and then I ended up at a trade school for my senior year. Probably the only reason that I actually graduated high school was that trade school. And I started cooking them, and I found out that, like, hey, I can do this. I can focus on 18 different things at once and be successful at it, rather than, for me, just the books weren't working. I couldn't pick it up and understand it as well as go in the kitchen, and your regimen kind of gave you direction. And then, I fell in love with that because I could control all my elements. So then from there, I pretty much went on to culinary school, did the 3-year Johnson Wales. I transferred in, and then headed out to California. So from Cali, I went to work for a great chef. He was Gavin Kaysen. Him and the entire kitchen team really kicked my butt. Took me from a, smart mouth little kid just out of culinary school who thought he was the ready to go, to pretty much getting smacked around in a sense. But, it was a high pressure life, and that's what I wanted. I wanted the fine dining. I wanted the love of the super complicated plates and everything. I did it, and we did a lot of partying and working, and, that was kind of the lifestyle. El Bizcocho. I remember doing Chateaubriand on the fly. So chef would look at me and go, "Guess who's making Bernays?" And so I learned how to make Bernays pretty much with my eyes closed in that kitchen. It was pretty funny that way. But so I did El Bizcocho. Then he went to go to New York and go work under Daniel Boulud, which that's pretty much as good as it gets. That's like, going to work for Thomas Keller, as a younger chef. So, and now he's in Minnesota. He's doing amazing. James Beard Award winner. And yeah. So he's done great for himself. But after he left, we all kind of scattered. We all, went our separate ways. I realized that I just couldn't afford to live in California anymore.
Hmm.
So I literally just jumped back to Chicago and, started all over again in a sense, because the little job that I did out in California didn't have any pull yet. He was a big name in small groups, but he wasn't as well known as he is today. So I didn't get as much pull when I said it, but I thought I would. Oh well. I came back, I hit the streets running. I tried to stage at as many restaurants downtown Chicago, True, Graham Elliott, Blackbird, wherever I could. But then after a couple weeks of doing that, realizing it wasn't financially sustainable for me to just keep going to the city and working for free. Like, I got to see some cool stuff, but it just wasn't the right fit. So, new hotel opened. I started working as a saucier. Well, I started as a line cook and then turned into a saucier. So that's where a lot of my, background of honing down that reductions and all that stuff kind of comes from. And then he was a tough chef. Me and him did not get along whatsoever, but we went our separate ways and we're all better off for it. So from there, I went and did Salatino's, my first sous chef job. And we were making these inch thick pork chops that are brined, and you have a T-bone chop and then you have a rib chop. Well, the way that you make this dish is you get a 12-inch skillet, half full of oil, to smoke point, and then you proceed to gently lower these still damp pork chops into smoke point oil. Okay. I built a welding glove that had a secondary glove inside of it, and I still almost burned through the glove with the pan handles. It was literally, I've had an entire stove go up in that kitchen, and the Ansel system did not go off. So that's the.
Hey, you didn't have to close for 3 days, so there you go.
Well, what the best part was is that after we finally got through the rush that night, then the GM comes in and goes, "Oh yeah, the owners come in and show off the place. You got to get it spick and span." I was so pissed, just so pissed. We got it done, and then of course the owner never showed up. So that was an interesting job, because we were an old school Italian restaurant, Chicago style. So we did the big meatballs, the braciole, the gravy that cooked on the stove for 3 hours. And if someone forgot to stir it, it was ruined. And then next door to that was this pizza place where they were going to do all these different styles of pizza. And that's kind of where I got like my first taste of pizza. And that's when I started living on pizza for probably months at a time. But we were driving anywhere from 45 to an hour and a half into the city every day, working 14 hours and then driving home. So, it's like, guess what? We're eating pizza today. But I learned a lot of valuable things there, knife skills, really honing in on, making pastas that I could, and running a small kitchen. It was good, but it was rough. I had a rough crew, but you learn from it. Is that you? So,
were you hearing something there?
Yeah, it was like a fly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Flies are freaking awful this year. But yeah, so I did that short job. I went on to my next one, working for a corporate small Italian chain, Francesca's. They were kind of a side project of that original one. That one just didn't work out. My chef, he got into a car accident and he was out. And then the guy they brought on, I didn't really care for, and it wasn't worth for me that drive of 45 minutes to an hour and a half to go there. So I did that for a little while. Then from there, I left. I worked at a little gastropub that was attempting to happen, but the chef was too visionary for the area. I mean, honestly, he wanted to do a lot of molecular gastronomy in a 40-mile out from the city Rivertown, where they have fine dining and your old school heavy duty Italian food, which is still there. And we try to do like, the lecithin and the alginate, and we had all the guar gums and that kind of stuff. But we only had three of us with a real passion. And when we would get slammed, we'd crash and burn because there just was too big of a line and too big of a menu for the three of us, really. Well, there's four of us, but yeah. So that was short lived. I went to go work for Pinstripes. This was the beginning of quite a ride. So came in at Pinstripes under bad information, because not bad information, but half of the information, because I had my old chef was going to come in and work for them, and then I was going to come in and train as a sous chef. So that's where I came in, like ready to go, hot and heavy, like this is going to be awesome. Well, he really screwed up royally and severed that tie even before I had started, but I was already in because I'd already quit that job. I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere at the gastropub, making really barely enough money to pay gas. And honestly, I was lucky I was living at home because that was cheaper on rent. So went to Pinstripes. Well, he had really screwed that, interaction up massively. So I already had, one strike against me. And then Pinstripe is where I learned how to really do volume. And then I built a lot there, but I mean, there were some nights, man. There were definitely some nights of work and plenty nights of partying.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. During our time at Pinstripes and opening up that Overland Park location, they guessed that we were going to do a certain amount a week, and it ended up being about 4 times that. And we had about a tenth of the staff that we needed to operate in that space during that time. And just as you said, there's probably in my career no restaurant that's had a bigger impact during a short amount of time as Pinstripes had on me when it came to how to operate at volume, and the amount of technique that I learned, especially kitchen techniques from guys such as you and Brad. And it was just unreal the amount of time and effort that we put into that place.
Oh my God.
It really was.
It was like every day we were out of everything. It was, and I guess we'll start prepping. I'm like, well, shit, I guess we're going to start prepping. I mean, we went through so many kitchen guys. They wouldn't last 2 hours sometimes.
Oh.
They literally would just walk out. They're like, no, I'm out. So yeah, that was a brutal, I will be honest, that was probably one of the worst openings I've done. Like, just in as much as we did prepare, we just were not ready for it. And I remember that weekend was Mother's Day weekend, because that was the whole thing why we had to open so quickly was, it's Mother's Day weekend. We got to make money. It's the busiest day of the year. Yeah, with a pirate crew of staff that half knows the menu if they're lucky. I mean, us trainers, God, we worked insane hours. And then it was just like, all right, go back to the hotel. I mean, that's what we were there for, but there was a lot of drinking during that. I'll be dead serious. I mean, Oh yeah. I literally would go pick up a 6-pack and I'd just sit in the lobby watching the TV, not really watching, just drink a 6-pack. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed, going to work tomorrow. So, and then we had some parties too. So, but it wasn't all just lonely drinking in the hotel lobby. But, that was just because everyone else was asleep or ready to work the other shift. That was all we really did was work and sleep. So
mostly work.
Mostly work. I remember I think it was Sunday morning of Mother's Day. And literally that night I had been there from open to close. I mean, I was on the line, I think, for 11 hours straight. Barely. I almost fell over finally, but we had to count the tickets because they wanted to see what the hell had happened, just because that was when we really got screwed. Was just so busy. So we were counting, we were getting like 5 tickets a second. I mean, it was almost like, because it was by the minute. So, I mean, we were getting 20 tickets a minute. So it was insane that that was that crazy. I don't know how we even did that, to be honest. That's kind of baffling that we put out that much food in that short of time with who we had, you know. I mean,
The fact
luckily
that
we
we
had,
survived is amazing.
yeah.
The fact that they didn't have to lock the doors and start turning people away. I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced in a restaurant business. I mean, and it's not to say, I mean, all circumstances we did well, but there was a lot of issues. Staff just walking out saying this is crazy. I mean, I had a guest who's basically pushed me up against the wall and said, I am an investor in this place. My family came in and this is the biggest shit show I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to make sure you lose your job. I mean, it was
Oh,
unlike anything I ever expected. I mean, I had spent 4 or 5 months training in the Oakbrook store. I
mhm,
think you were at Oakbrook a little bit during my time there, but that ran so smooth. I mean, everything that we
mhm,
do, $40,000, $50,000 days, hundreds of covers a night, so
mhm,
smooth, no issues. And then just to walk into that buzz saw and just be completely set up for failure, none of
mhm.
which was really our fault in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I
No.
even remember having a conversation with them on the front end when I'm looking at the staff. I said, you guys need 3 or 4 more time staff. Well, I don't think we're
Mhm.
going to be that busy because they had just opened up the DC location and
Yeah.
it had kind of
I,
flopped. It wasn't really
I
busy.
was
And
there.
that's right. And I think that they thought that opening was going to be the same way, or they were worried about overstaffing and having the same issues that they had had in DC. And it was the opposite of that. I mean, I think they
Yeah.
said that day that you're talking about, Mother's Day weekend. I mean, they compared us to all the other locations, but I think that we did 5 times as many orders that day than any of the other locations at all. Five
Mhm.
times. And they just, for those that don't know, Pinstripes banks on their buffets, their brunch buffets. What they didn't expect is the amount of a la carte business that we did, because Johnson County is like, oh, we don't really want a brunch buffet. We just want brunch items. And so people were just coming in and ordering
Mhm.
pizzas and steaks and sandwiches and bottles of wine. And it was just a whole different thing. And it just, yeah, complete failure, really,
Yeah.
really was.
I remember I remember getting chewed out on the line to the point where I had a sous chef come to my defense, like, dude, he's in the weeds, because we all were. But I was just at a point where I just couldn't keep up, you know. So, you learn from it though. I definitely did. I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot on that one. But yeah, we did the DC one and it was a bang out the gate and then it died quick. I mean, super quick.
Yeah.
And I was there for, I think, a month and a half. That one's really fuzzy. I'm not gonna lie. Was a I went out every night and went hardcore then. I mean, but that was DC, and we're right in the heart of Georgetown. So all you have is college bars, and then you got all the political the politician bars and stuff like that. But everything's open so late that it was just like, yeah, let's just go out drinking. And I remember one time we had one big group kind of gathering, and I woke up the next morning. I didn't know who I was or where I was. I was in my
Mm-hmm.
room, but I remember I was already 3 hours late and strolling in. And I'm not going to name names, but I named her the secretary. She literally looked at me as I'm rolling in. I'm just death. I'm death, death beyond. And she starts reaming me out. And then one of the other sous chefs goes, dude, he's in so much pain. He doesn't even care. Like, you're the last thing he's worrying about. But I mean, we accomplished a lot, but that was a big struggle on that one, honestly. So, but I've been back there a couple times in my travels. I think twice I've stopped back through there, and it's okay. It seems like it's doing enough business. So, best of wishes to them on that.
Yeah, I certainly have no ill feelings towards them, because I mean we were all playing the same game. Everybody was just overwhelmed, and nobody really expected what we walked into. And I mean, I know they're still opening up restaurants, so they're seeing some
Oh
sort of
yeah.
success. And I mean, let's be real, most of those restaurants do $10+ million in sales a year. And when,
Mhm.
a quarter or a third of that is people bowling and tossing bocce balls, that's just cash in pocket.
Yeah.
For those that, see restaurant P&Ls, if you can get some kind of dollars that's not taken away with food costs or liquor
Mhm.
costs, that's where you
Yeah.
can really make some dough, and they capitalize on that. It was a pretty brilliant business plan on their part. But if you haven't seen them, it's a 40,000 square foot behemoth of a place. Most of them 2 levels, 2 patios, private
Banquet.
dining, 10 bowling alleys or 12 bowling alleys,
Hmm.
8 bocce courts, 2 bars, really 2 kitchens, a lower main kitchen and kind of an upstairs staging kitchen.
Hmm.
And it's not like your front end cost isn't significant, but yeah, they can put dollars to the bottom line pretty
Oh
easily.
yeah. I mean, I remember the holidays, like I was in Barrington because I was in Oak Brook, and I needed to change. So they sent me up to Barrington. And I remember we weren't the busiest location. I mean, I know Northbrook was insane, but we had like during the holiday season, man, 22 events a day for probably a month. And we'd have to break it up between about 9 of us and execute
Mm-hmm.
all that, you know. So, but like you said, that's where we learned how to do high volume. And honestly, we still had high standards.
Oh
That
yeah.
was, we were always under inspection. I mean, I remember I used to get the cooks in DC would yell at me because I would literally walk around with a flashlight to check their stations. They're like, "What is this?" Like, it's standards, it's cleanliness, it's a kitchen. It's not the diner down the street where there's a greasy spoon under your stove. Hey, I still eat at those places. But you get what I'm saying. Like we had standards. I walked around with a ruler in my pocket because we had to check the size of the cabbage for the slaw, you know, make sure that I had my way of cutting fish. And it took them a while to realize why I did some of the things that I did. I'd use my hand and I'd kind of figure out the best cut of the fish. Like, where am I going to get the most yield out of this fish? Instead of, well, I need blocks. That kind of looks like blocks. So, hack it on up. But yeah, Pinstripes was a beast and it makes a lot of money. Good for them. It just, I did what I did. I learned how to do it well. And then I pretty much moved on. So,
That's great. Yeah, I kind of did want to touch on you brought up kind of the partying aspect, and that's obviously completely normal in the service industry. I think that it's no secret that there is a lot of alcoholism, drug abuse, basically any vice under the sun
yeah.
can be found in the restaurant business, and rightfully so to a certain point. As you and I have talked about, we have operated in some very high stress situations, low sleep situations. I mean, I think a couple days at Pinstripes, I probably had like 8 to 10 Red Bulls a day. And, that's a drug in its own of just trying to get by, and then, having to, pop a Tylenol PM and hope you wake up in time for your alarm just to try to get any sleep because you're so worked up but so
Mhm.
exhausted you're just trying to fall asleep. I know you struggled with the drinking and partying, but you've been sober for a while now. Talk about what that journey looked like as a person who still works in the industry, but has been able to take something that was able to, get your mind off of that day, calm down your brain, whatever that particular vice was for you, and kind of maneuver it around. Because there's a lot of folks that'll be listening to this saying, "Hey, I'm in that position. I don't know how to get out of this. What'd you do?"
Mhm. All right. Yeah. I'm happy to talk about it. So it's been about 4 years. My wake up moment was July 5th of 2019. No, 2018. Sorry, 4 years ago. Not good at math. But I woke up at home and I wasn't supposed to wake up at home. I was supposed to be partying somewhere else, waking up somewhere else. And then part of the night kind of came back to me of what a absolute train wreck I was. But where that kind of started was college. Yes, we started drinking, and I have the alcoholism gene in me on both sides. So I'm predetermined in a sense. I mean, it can be beaten, but it's not easy. I thought I could beat it. I was outsmarting it, oh, I'm just gonna, do a little this. And then next thing we're in California, we were working hard. We are doing amazing plates and some of the best things that, I really started to get into, but we literally partied almost, 3 to 4 nights a week. I was going broke just because my bar tabs were $100. And, that's when I moved home, and I didn't really want to go out because I didn't like the idea of drinking and driving. So go home, have a couple beers, chill out. Well, then it just kept, oh, let's get into these higher ABVs, that kind of stuff. Well, then that's when I had moved back, and the workload had gotten really stressful, and we were understaffed. Some employees didn't care. The nighttime dinner crew were, a bunch of assholes, to be honest. They really were. So I was doing like breakfast some days, events, saucier, soups, you name it, whatever, just what we do. We do whatever needs to be done. But then it started taking a toll, and the stress started. So I'd start drinking, crap. But then I just started drinking a lot, and it just became a daily thing for me. And it was like, okay, I'm gonna go home and just start drinking. I mean, when I was working in Barrington, I would pick up a 6-pack, or I'd bring my cooler, I'd fill it full of ice before I left so I could pick up a 6-pack on the way home to drink. So, over the years, the stress of the kitchen, I mean, it's a high intensity, and I've always wanted to try to execute at a higher level, but it's always been very cutthroat. So it's always been high friction. I got it because I always wanted, I thought I wanted that title of sous chef. I thought for some reason I was fixated on it, because for me, that was the next level. Like, yeah, be a sous chef. It's going to be great. No, it's hard. It's a very hard crash course. I'm just going to tell anyone it's a hard crash course to take. But that was just me. I had just become, but my thing is that I used to say, oh no, I'm just drinking craft beers. I'm really into IPAs. And I was at the time. I still every once in a while don't mind the smell of a really hoppy beer. Not that I want to drink it, but it's just that refreshing kind of, I remember that flavor memory, and I don't need the beer for it. But that was just the kind of cover up for it. And, I drank like that a couple of years, and then I would, switch to some hard alcohol, and then the hard alcohol would pretty much turn to just vodka. And I'm not saying on the rocks, I'm saying neat, and whenever I would have a bad day, and I would have these bad days because I had such overly crazy high expectations of where my life was supposed to be, because I thought I was supposed to be here and I was here. This is something I'm learning now that shit doesn't matter. But, I had such a plan for my life that I didn't think I was where I was supposed to be. And then on the other half, I was struggling with depression and anxiety. So I was on all these medications. So the other thing, that part of my ADD, is I get a stimulant. So Focalin is what I'm taking. And that was the answer to my drinking problems, because I literally could drink all night, go to bed, take a Focalin in the morning, and pop up no matter what, because it's such a stimulant. It's a amphetamine. And that was really how I got through a lot of the years in the kitchen, being able to drink almost every night, all the way to, the morning, and then get up and go to work. Like, they literally referred to me, supposedly in an email, I don't have it, but whatever, no big deal, that I was an alien when I worked at our former employer, because of the things they would hear about how much and what I would do in my partying, and then I'd still be at work. And they're like, he's not human with what he does. And whatever. I mean, I learned how to do it, and I still learned how to, function and execute for the most part at a high level. But every time I got criticism, I took it too hard. And, I lived by how many plates got sent back, not how many plates went out. was my biggest issue. Was every time that, got questioned, instead of realizing, okay, it's just a screw up, just go. Oh, why did I do that? Was this too hot? Overthinking every situation. And that was the big reason for my drinking. Was I just was anxious and I overthought everything. So, it would just become to a point where it just became a routine, and then there's the vodka, but then for the most part, I'd bulk up on, beer, cheap beer, 6-pack of PBR or old style Schlitz, but, and it just became like that. And I put on weight too. I mean, I was up to 210, maybe 215 pounds, when I was at my biggest. And, but it was all the beer that I drank. I mean, I worked crazy hours and I worked insane stuff like that. But, when you pound 2 loaves of bread, liquid bread every night, it doesn't really help. So, I mean, I guess thinking back on it, it's also the medication because, I honestly, I think that we're an over medicated society, and I think we're underserved. Not, we don't talk to our therapists. I'll be honest. I think a lot of things could happen with the world if we just talk to, someone. It doesn't have to be a therapist. Just talk to someone, because that's what I've learned in the last few years is I just need someone that I can talk to that can help me understand maybe there's something else there. But I got on the bandwagon of I need to be medicated. There's got to be a medication to fix this problem. So I've been on medication for since I was like 19. I mean, 18 years of different medications. Try this, try that. Oh, you're not happy, but my biggest other fault on that one was I was drinking. So I was doing the opposite of what the expectancy you're supposed to do. You're supposed to not drink on that stuff so that you feel better. And so I got, I started drinking a lot, and then I'd have the focal in to counteract it, and I just learned to survive. I mean, it was, and then outside of that, just like you said, the Red Bulls. Oh my God, I drink so much Monster and Red Bulls that there's seriously, surprisingly reasons I'm not dead for one of the things that should have killed me. Drinking those big freaking BFCs. I mean, we drink one of those a day. When I was working at one place, we were brewing coffee with coffee just for that insane amount of caffeine. And, yes, we seriously, during those openings, we literally would go to the store, just buy a 24-pack of Red Bulls. All right, everybody, shift time. Let's go. Keep going. I mean, we did live and exist on those things. So, yeah. And cigarettes. Oh my God. We smoked so much. Oh, I mean, yeah, we smoked a lot. I mean, we worked a lot, but it was like, all right, I got 5 minutes. I don't give a, I'm going, see if I can fit in 2 just to calm the fuck down. Sorry, I don't know if I can.
You have not experienced total bliss until you've had a perfect shift on the line where you just crush it. Like you were saying, I'm the same sort of way. Like I can remember every single time that one of my dishes was sent back. But I mean, it's so hard for me to remember the good shifts. But I do remember one specific shift that just, I think it was even a Valentine's Day. Everything was just perfect. We were set up for success. Everything was perfect. Absolutely crushed it. And walking out and smoking that cigarette with your team is utter bliss. Oh, yeah. It sounds weird, absolutely, but there's just nothing better than that. There really isn't.
Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree with you on that one. Yeah, that feeling of, oh, dude, to the point where like after the rush, you do the mic drop with your tongs. Like you're just like, you look at everyone, you're like, flawless, done, we did it. You just feel great. You're like, all right, now it's a smoke break. And then when everyone goes together, it's like, wow, super team, superheroes for what all we just did. But yeah. Oh yeah, those Oh, I can't believe how much I smoked back then. Oh my God. Oh my
It's so
God.
easy to do it too. It's your time, especially in some of the style kitchens where you worked at. Um, it's that 5 minutes can feel like an eternity, till the end of that cigarette, and you're out there with your brothers, the people that you're basically going
Hmm.
to battle with, and it's your time to just decompress and de-stress for just a minute. You get that sweet hit of nicotine, and it's one of those pieces, especially in the restaurant business. It's like, sure, there's a nicotine addiction, but it's actually more so that addiction to that little time of just being stress free, that
Hmm.
little bit of socialization where you're just out there hanging out and just bullshitting, and or complaining, or
Hmm.
just yelling at each other, whatever it is. Or in our case, I think you're here for this one in Oak Brook where someone tossed their cigarette into the recycling dumpster and lit all the
Oh,
cardboard on fire. That was a fun one. We all got to take a smoke break and watch somebody try to put that out. So that was pretty funny. But
oh,
yeah, no, it's definitely a different thing in the restaurant business when it comes to smoking. It wasn't till I started working in Denver, that it was kind of weird to see people smoking cigarettes. It's just kind of a different thing in Denver,
hmm.
but everywhere else, it's definitely a big piece of the service industry.
Hmm. Yeah. Sitting out on a 5-gallon bucket or a milk crate,
Mm,
smoking a cigarette. That was heaven. That was bliss. You're
yep.
sitting there, and then, if you really need to get amped up to jump back because you needed your 2 minutes after you're still, on the tapering end of that crush, it's like, dude, I gotta just go have a cigarette. Like if you just got railed with tickets
Mm,
and you're absolutely depleted and you're just energy, like, I need a cigarette. I need to just, actually get my heart rate back up, breathe for a second, and then suck one down really fast so I can get back on the line and just go focus, zone in, because your heart rate goes, the adrenaline kind of goes with it after, you're jacked up. So,
hmm
oh man.
Right. Yeah. I haven't had a cigarette in a very long time, but even just talking about it makes me want to go take a drag off one. It's like, man, those are good times. Those are good times. Well,
Oh,
Dan, when you talk about having someone to talk to, that's one of the reasons why I really want to do this podcast, because I want people to know that there are people who want to talk to you and have conversations about the struggles that you're going through, and your story is going to reverb with so many people in the situations that they're in. Tell them what it looks like on the other side, because it seems so hard to get off this, and I think about where you were and where you are now, and just how big of an accomplishment that is. So talk a little bit about, maybe it wasn't a struggle, maybe it was a struggle, but when you made that decision on July 5th to today, what that's looked like for you.
yeah. So, I woke up and I had thought about it once again. I'd gotten to the point where I realized it was a problem. Um, and I talked to it with my best friend. He was actually the one that picked me up from that party and took me home. Um, so, but it wasn't easy, but it wasn't the hardest thing in my life. I mean, I realized I legitimately made a mental separation from it, though. I made it a hard, like, that's it. Like, I literally packed up all the booze that I had and I gave it to my best friend. I'm like, take it. I don't want it. You can have it. I eliminated that too. I started exercising. So, the reason that I really crashed was is I had burned out at the restaurant beforehand at the Craftsman. Honestly, I had enough of that place, and I wanted to, you know, or was it? No, it wasn't the. Yeah, it was the Craftsman. It was the Craftsman, and that job was a very busy restaurant. We had 5 menus, 3 floors, 3 different restaurants, and managing that. So that's really when I burned out, but then I never quit drinking. So I would just sit at home and drink, and then I go work for my stepdad because I couldn't find a job for some reason. No one wanted to hire me. Maybe it's because I wasn't, a drinker. And when we go to work in the shop, it would be hot. I'd be sweating. And then I go home, and instead of going and cracking a beer, I jump on my bike, and I literally would bike 5 to 10 miles as hard and as fast as I could and just do it. And I'd time myself and I'd push myself there. I figured if I could break that, you know, consistent lifestyle of I'm going to go sit in my chair, I'm going to crack this beer, and I'm going to turn on the TV and just flip channels. You know, it's also been proven that's how you can do this, but I didn't know that. I just needed to do something different, and I needed to occupy my mind, and I wanted to get better. So I literally would just bike 5 to 10 miles a day. And I did that for weeks. I did it for weeks until it was just like, okay, I think I've gotten through that first initial hard part, because as long as I can go in too exhausted to do anything, you know, and then go do some sit-ups, you know, whatever, and take a shower and then try to do something else, you know, it just would get me away from drinking. And I was able to start doing my woodworking. You've seen some of my handles on the knives that I've done. I had to occupy myself. So, you know, I quit drinking. I found a job at, this was when I was at Parker's, and it was a higher end restaurant. We were white tablecloth, fine dining, you know, wood fires, you know, oven, charcoal grill. That was hell. We're not talking briquettes, we're talking lump. And this grill had to have been 40 years old. The building, it was 40 years old. So I'm guessing that the grill was still there from the original. You know, but after I get off of work, I'd be all jazzed up. You know, normally that was when I would go drink. So I found a way to occupy. I found a hobby or something. For me, it was, you know, I like my antique cleavers. So some of them were ugly. So I was like, handle's busted, I'm going to make it better. I mean, that's really what you got to do is, instead of going and sitting in your chair, you know, in the dark with a beer, you got to go somewhere where you can just zone out. I'd put on the noise canceling headphones and get to the belt sander or, you know, whatever I was doing. And I would just occupy myself for hours at a time instead of pounding beer or, you know, drinking vodka, whatever, Jack, you name it. But that was really what I did. And that's what, you know, got me motivated. And then I stopped, you know, I was able to save money because I wasn't spending all on beer and stupid, you know, products that I would purchase. I, you know, went and did that. You know, I saved up enough money to pay off all my credit cards, which was pretty big for me. And then, you know, I started saving money because I wanted to buy a house. And this is when I was working at my previous job. And that job became too much. I mean, honestly, it was a very old restaurant that they had changed concepts, kind of, you know, half changed. Like, we're going to go kind of in this direction or this direction. I mean, the place is a monster for what it is. It, you know, we were doing almost $4.5 million when I left in sales for this little, you know, couple, you know, 100 to, or I can't even tell you how many seats were in there, maybe 200. But, you know, we would do all the steaks off the line. We didn't have a banquet kitchen. We had, our prep area was, you know, one metal table, and you had a kettle, a smaller stove, a double stack oven, and a spiral pizza or spiral dough mixer. So, like, we couldn't really do banquets from anywhere else but off the line. So even on a Saturday night, we'd be doing 50 fillets in the middle of service right off the line, and then still put out 250 covers, 300 covers on top of it. So, like, the stress level was still there. And that's really where I found the need to, you know, keep myself busy, because then there was no draw to, you know, alcohol. I literally was just able to be like, I don't have any desire anymore to have it. You know, I think there's really been one time where I've, you know, it was a really bad day, and I thought about it, not gonna lie, you know, I thought about it, but I knew that it was just something I didn't want. There was no need for it. It was just kind of like, oh, it's there. All right. Nope. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go back down that road of, you know, am I waking up on the floor? And, you know, you never know. So, you know, I started doing that, and then I had another burnout. with Parker's. The chef was leaving and I didn't want the position, but I still had to do it while he was gone until they had gotten someone. And I put in my notice and I was like, that's it. Like, this is when, I had the thing of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I've had 3 good burnouts. One was, so we actually didn't even talk about where I worked with Brad, but that's not a big deal. So after Pinstripes, I worked at a job called Level 257, pretty much a similar concept to Pinstripes. I was all over the place there. Then I went to do this little corporate catering gig for, or not corporate catering, but corporate kitchen inside an office building, just doing the breakfast stuff and some, hot lunch, whatever. And then we were busy, but the higher ups were just people that we didn't want to continue to work with. And I pretty much hung up my chef coat. And I said, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. It was, the hours, the pay, the sacrifices. Honestly, every holiday, every birthday, you worked. And for me, I was, whenever I was a sous chef, I was salaried, I was there. There was those, 12, 15, 16-hour days. I think 18 was when I did at Pinstripes, when we did Overland Park. I think there was a couple of 18s in there. But I burned out and I said, okay, we're gonna try something else. And I always find myself coming back to the kitchen. I had that burnout and then I had the burnout, but that was because of my drinking. And then my third burnout was just stress of realizing like this life is really freaking hard. Like there's just so much that you got to do, but it didn't help that I was an overthinker. But I also had to learn how to trust people because the way I've always been is I'm always a very hands-on. I got to see what's going on. I got to make sure that I'm double checking this, and this. And I wasn't trusting the team there to do what they do well. Because these were all veteran guys. These are all guys that have worked there for 5, 10, or 15 years that gotten those, oh, hey, you've been here so long, pick out your prize in the book. And I was like, is that really what I want? I'd see these guys and that's all they did was they just worked that job 5 days a week. They worked at another job a couple days a week and that was all they wanted. Was just come in, work, get paid, get their little, here's your 2-year anniversary for the 4th time kind of gift, because that's what they would do. The whole, illegal immigrants or whatever. Yeah, these guys would go down the city and find new papers. And it's not an unknown thing. I mean, now it doesn't even matter because you can't verify anyone anymore. So, whatever. But that crew really just kind of put me to realize that maybe just the kitchen isn't for me. That high volume, high stress, crazy hours. I'd done it it's been 20 years since like I really kind of made that decision that, hey, cooking is the way I'm going to go. So 21 years it's been, and I was like, what's the next step? What, I get an office in a dry storage room where right behind me is all my number 10 cans. And I know I wasn't the only one, but I was like, that's what I'm going to get as, is this the pinnacle of where I'm going to be? And I was like, I don't want this, for the money that I was getting paid, which was probably the best pay that I'd ever had, but the hours sucked and it was just a tough crew. And I was, for whatever reason, but yeah, we parted ways on good terms. I wish them all luck, but that was pretty much when I made my decision to jump in my car. And instead of buying a house, I used that money to drive around the country because I had to figure out what I needed to do, where I needed to be, because nothing was working. I was 33 or 32, 33. I was still living at home. because I could never get my life together long enough, I literally would, I'd get a job, things would be going great, and then I'd start drinking really heavy because I'd start taking on too much, and then I'd burn out, quit, and then I'd have no more money. Plus, I was spending money left and right. Like it was just like on trees. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Not really understanding finances and was one of my weaknesses. I'm not great with finances, but I'm good enough that I was able to save up and buy a house after spending 4 months driving around the country, seeing everything I wanted to see. Not everything, but getting a glimpse of everything I wanted to see. And, I drove from here, Cincinnati through Pennsylvania, all the way up to Rhode Island to see, family and friends and see the country because, I felt kind of trapped here in Illinois. Still do, but that's for taxes reasons. Okay.
You're not the only one, trust me.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, my state is run by clowns. Okay. You might have to edit that out, but
I'm gonna put that as a feature, but yeah.
There you go. Oh no, do it. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously I stopped and I saw you on this trip, but I mean, I really came out of my shell and I kind of got to see, when I started that trip, I'm like, what am I going to find? Is this what I'm going to find? You do that whole, like, you're determined to figure it out, and then I got like halfway through and I was like, well, is when I had the realization of what is so-and-so doing at home right now? It doesn't matter. They're all the way over there and it doesn't really matter. I started to realize I need to just experience stuff instead of thinking about what this person's doing, that person's doing, they're doing over there. I'm like, no, I'm going to enjoy just cruising down the road in the middle of nowhere and just enjoy it instead of, okay, where do I got to be? How soon till I get, that's the hustle and bustle of my trip was like, oh, I can only be here for so many days. I had originally planned that this was only going to be an 8-week trip. Okay. I was going to be back by New Year's. And then I was in Arizona at New Year's and I realized, you know what? I'm just going to keep going. I had until the end of February to get back before my license plates expired. And I really didn't want to be a rolling rolling target. Oh, easy ticket right there. Let's go get the Illinois guy. But I mean, I did some crazy things. I dug for gold in the backwoods of Alabama, dug for diamonds in Arkansas. I met, my buddy, and now it's like my third cousin's husband. I don't know how that all works, but when I worked with him at Pinstripes, we became good buddies. And then he ended up actually marrying like my mom's cousin's daughter, but we're still friends. And it was cool because he was down in North Carolina. So I stayed with him for a little bit. But I mean, I built a lot of these relationships with people that I felt that I'd gotten away from. And some of them had literally said to me that they would not have let me stay with them if I was still drinking. I literally called them and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in your area. You want to hang out? Oh yeah. Just so you know, I haven't had a drink in 2 years. I hadn't had a drink in like a year or something, but I told them that and they're like, oh yeah, come on over. Like legitimately it was a problem to everyone else. I just didn't see it, and I had my family, they tried to help me a lot and I ignored the snot out of them because I didn't think I had a problem. But back to that, like I did my trip, I got halfway through and I'm like starting to understand that not everything is important and, it's not do or die. Everything is not black or white. If, no one's paying attention on to you every second of the day, maybe a certain alphabet agency, but I'm not saying anything there, but, learning to just live for now and not for tomorrow was really one of the things that I had to get over to quit drinking. And, then in the trip, when I got to Zion, I think Zion was really the big turn for me. Was I met these really cool guys from Boston. They were in the tent next to campsite next to me, and we went hiking. And that was when I claimed Angel's Landing for the first time. And it was just that, I think, was when I had my revelation of like how big and insane things are. Even though I'd just been driving around the country for 3 months, putting insane amount of miles on my car. But I just realized like there's more to life than just your little everyday, this little thing pissed me off, this little thing pissed me off, this little thing pissed me off. It's, it's becoming more of, all right, that's not even a big deal. What does it matter? I mean, it's, going from being such a control freak and all this to this other thing it's a transformation. And, for people that are going through this, being on the other side, you are going to become a different person. Okay. And you're going to lose weight. I think I'm down about 45 pounds since I quit drinking. So there's another benefit of, quitting drinking. But I had that revelation, and I was able to look at my life differently because my biggest, cause of the anxiety was worrying about every little, slightly off plate that I put up in my past, and what this, person thinks about me, and giving a shit about what they think about me. Okay. And I think that might be because society tells you to. You should really care about what other people. No, I don't care what other people think about me. Okay. My friends like me. My family likes me. That's really all that matters. My people at work, they like me, and I enjoy working with them because we're a good team. But, I will be nice to everybody, and I will give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But, if I'm not going to see you, for 2 weeks, what you do outside of here, that's your life. It doesn't affect me. So you're going to do what you're going to do. You're not going to think about me for the most part either. So why do I have to worry about it? Why do I have to be anxious about it? Do you understand what I'm saying on that part?
Oh, absolutely. And, sitting here, I'm just overwhelmed because I'm just so proud of you and what you've been able to do in such a short time, because what you have done personally to transform yourself, as you so aptly put it, is a greater accomplishment than anything you've ever done in the kitchen, Dan. And I'm so proud of you for that. And I love you for that, man. Like that is so spectacular, because what you just said is so much more powerful than, having that perfect shift in the restaurant, getting that title that you've ever wanted, even opening your own restaurant and creating your own thing.
Right.
That is going to do more for people than just about anything else. And you being open and honest and being able to share this story is just so wonderful, because there's so many people that are waking up on the floor, so many people that are waking up where they're not supposed to be, that don't know what the next step is. They know that this career is crushing them, this job is crushing them. Maybe it is in the restaurant business, maybe it's not. But I mean, what you just provided is like the 101 game plan of how to get yourself healthy. You talk about the weight loss, you talk about the exercise, you talk about finding these awesome pastimes to take your mind off of these crazy overthinking habits and bringing them into something productive that is in a non-toxic way. And that's just spectacular. So thank you so much for sharing. And I love you, man. Like that's
Thanks,
just
dude.
so
Love you
cool.
too.
And watching your growth over the past few years has really been amazing. And I'm happier in my life. And it was so cool when you did come and see me in Vegas, because we kind of knew each other and we were in a group chat, and we had communicated back and forth. But that meant a lot to me when you stopped in, and I tried to make like the perfect burger for you, try to show off that I had a little kitchen skills too, and I introduced you to my chef there. But that was really neat to be a part of your journey. And that was more than just a geographical journey. As you explained, like there was a lot that happened there. And in a spiritual and mental way. And I think that's pretty cool. But I'll get we've been in some deep topics already. So I'll get to something a little bit lighter. I was talking to you before we started the podcast. My wife and I want to make a trip out to Chicago to see you, and obviously we'll get into the Culinary Pizza Academy here in a little bit. But if we're going into Chicago, what's a good restaurant first to go check out? I know that scene's amazing. I did live there for a little while. What's one of your favorite spots in Chicago to grab a bite to eat?
So honestly, I don't go to the city. It's dangerous, and maybe I'm just a suburbanite, but when the stats of how many people get shot downtown are updated probably by the hour, I just don't want to go down there. I have no desire. I mean, there's a lot of amazing restaurants down there. If you want to go and you want to have fun, I have a buddy of mine who does Chicago pizza tours. And you just spend the day eating all different types of pizza. Well, maybe that's just because I'm so pizza centric right now.
Hey, sign me up. I'm ready for some pizza.
I mean, yeah. And I hear a lot of different things, but I don't want to really give you a recommendation because I have not been downtown in years. It's just not a place that I desire to go. There's too many people. I like it out here in the suburbs. It's quiet. The houses are separate. I just, living in an apartment for me or a condo was just going to be way too tight. I enjoy it way out here, out west where it's a little bit quieter at night. I still have rabbits in my backyard, stuff like that. But yeah, even when people are like, hey, let's go to the city, I'm like, hard pass. I'm just not that interested in going down because it's such a long, it's half an hour to an hour downtown at any time, and then getting back's a nightmare. And then there's all the tolls that you got to pay to drive out there. So for some people, though, they're amazed by the dazzle of the city and everything. I don't know. Maybe Rush Street is still as popular as it was, but I could probably find you some of the best pizza that you're ever going to have with this new pizza job that I have. I've made some great connections. So, yeah, pizza, I'm good. I can get you pizza anywhere. On the culinary scene, I'll change my mind. I will send you to Arlington Heights, and that is where the Bears are now going to play in 10 years. But we've been doing some consultation with a group called Chicago Culinary Kitchen. They are a monster in the restaurant scene up in the Chicagoland area. And they have like a barbecue joint. Now we're working with them on some pizzas. They just opened a pizza joint. Now they're going to do like a fish house. I mean, these guys are animals at what they do. They're so good at what they do. And they have a crew that loves to work with them. It's amazing to, train with them and everything. They know what they want. They want the answers quick, and they're great, but they make like nonstop amazing reviews everywhere. I would send you up to Arlington Heights, easy to go there.
Heck yeah, man. I'll kick in the suburbs for a weekend and, stay safe. That was pretty funny. Update by the hour. Yeah, no, it's a different beast there in Chicago, for sure. Well, thank you for the recommendations, and my wife and I we're definitely going to come and visit soon. But tell me what you got going on there at the Academy. I get to see all these amazing pictures and all this amazing pizza and breads that you're doing. Tell me why this is different. Why this is your jam right now.
So coming from the high end, crazy hours and everything, I got back from my road trip. 2 weeks later was March 17th when everything shut down. So I literally had a conversation before I left on my trip with these, my boss, that guy who's currently my boss, that, hey, I'm back in a couple months. You guys don't have a spot. Great. Let's see if we can work something out. But then we had the shutdown happen. So shutdown happens. I end up going to work for my stepdad. I get a phone call. They needed someone to just start doing curbside menu, simple stuff, chicken parm, chicken vesuvio, chicken piccata, meatballs, come up with some menu items and just try to promote it and get people to drive by and do the, oh, here, put down the food outside and then they come and get it, stuff like that. And what happened was then all of a sudden that started to die down. So at the time I was looking to start saving up to buy a house. And when I came to my mortgage guy at one time, he looked at me and goes, dude, the numbers that you told me versus the numbers that you have now don't match. He's like, I cannot give you a loan right now. Like, that's just not going to work. And he was absolutely right. Not going to lie. He was absolutely right. So I ended up taking another job part-time. So I was working part-time at school, part-time at this other pizza joint, which they're amazing, and doing what I could to make as much money. And then after about 2 months of doing that, the position for a full-time salaried was open at my, so I jumped on it. I was like, listen, I want to be here all the time. I'm willing. I know the hours. What do you want me to do? I'll do it. I was willing to do just about anything for a job at that point in time. I mean, it was nice working for my stepdad and helping him out, but I needed to make money, to survive. After my trip, I wanted to get out. I saw that there's so much to life. So I really wanted a house. So I started doing that. So I was full-time there. We're start doing this, that, and the other thing. We're doing a lot of culinary stuff. And me and the owner, who's my boss now, we're both Johnson Wales grads. So we hit it off like from the beginning because we both had the same work ethic of, we're going to get the job done. We're going to do what we need to do to get it done. We're going to survive, because that was what we wanted was, so we're doing that. We get through the holidays, and I'm not going to say any real more about, but one of the partners left, and I won't say any more just for any reason, but my boss now, he sat us down. He's like, I don't even know if we can stay open, because he was a partner, even though he wasn't a financial partner. He was just there to do stuff. So, and then we kind of went day to day for, I think it was like 3-4 days of not knowing if we were going to have a job.
I remember you asking me if I wanted to buy a pizza oven. You're like, hey, we might be selling some pizza ovens. Like, you interested?
Yeah. I mean,
oh man, that's rough.
Yeah. So it was rough. So literally, like, I had finally, gotten the job that I needed. I was finally paying bills, putting money away for a house, because they wouldn't give me a mortgage until I had, 8 months or whatever working. And like, just crushed. Absolutely crushed. Like, I finally find a job that it's not crazy, super high stress. There's room for knowledge and growth. I mean, I had all these pizza guys. I literally got to, meet Rick Tremano when he came in to take his pizza exam. So he did the 5-day certification. Well, when I was a young chef, I idolized him. I mean, I had his cookbooks. I staged at his restaurant, stuff like that. Like, a lot of his flavors I kind of followed with. He was, the guy, and there he is. He's, just Rick Tremano is just taking a pizza class. Like, for me, that was huge.
You want to explain to a little bit of people who Rick Tremano is, because he's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So Rick Tremano is a James Beard award-winning chef. He really elevated cuisine in Chicago. He's had a multitude of restaurants, and he is very old school. He learned through the rough kitchens. I've read, some of his books, and he worked for like Dave Thomas and he went to England, and he was doing some stuff in England. And, but when he opened True was like his, he had Trio, he had True, but he's a James Beard chef, award-winning chef. His partner in True was Gail Gann. She is a multiple award-winning pastry chef herself. And he really was a big force in the Chicago food scene in the 90s. I mean, maybe some of the 80s and 90s, but like, he had a lot of, amazing restaurants. And his mind is just, it's this library of information. I mean, he's done so much, and he's cooked, with Julia Child, and you see, I follow him on Instagram, and he's posting some of these old pictures, and it's like, holy cow, look at what you've done. Like, that's amazing. And he's really influenced a lot of, the chefs in Chicago now. I believe there's a video of actually when Grant, I'm going to mess up his name, I think it's Ackett's, Alinea, the chef from Alinea. Please, no one hate me for that one.
I think you got it right. Yeah.
Okay, well, but he used to be a prep cook there. Like they have a video of them actually messing with him, telling him to go look for a left-handed saute pan. And that guy, he worked for the best of the best, and he's amazing. I mean, but I got out of that, in a sense, I myself, I got out of that high-end cuisine. Like, that was too much. It was, the tweezers and the droppers, and then let me just cook. That's what I say. But, Rick Tremano was just a big deal, and it was awesome. And, I was so happy. I forgot, where was I going with this? I forgot.
You're talking about how he was at the Pizza Academy getting his certification.
Oh, yeah.
Got a little starstruck.
Yeah. So I got starstruck. So it's just funny, but like, watching and sitting in and seeing all these chefs coming through, I was like, good, I'm glad I'm here. I get to see this kind of stuff. And I learned a lot of stuff. But then came like the winter of 2021. And I believe it was like February that the other partner walked out, and the boss came back, and he's like, hey, we can use the name. So what do you guys want? He literally sat me and our director of sales down, and he's like, we make a decision right here. He goes, we either shut the door, lock up, I sell the building, whatever, or we give it a year, we see what we can do, and I'll give us a year. Because he wasn't making any money. He owned the building, so he was still paying the note and he still is on the building, but he had no income. So, for him, he's like, are you guys going to be willing to do all this? And I mean, without even a half a second, both of us were like, yes. I mean, I was willing to do whatever it took to get this place, because it wasn't that high stress environment that, maybe it was more I was getting time to kind of hone some of my skills and, make stocks from scratch with chicken scraps and, vegetable stuff to make soups for to-goes. But like, I kind of felt it was becoming a bit of a home. And I mean, you walk into I say my, because it's kind of like, my baby. I know it's my boss's business and all that, but like, it's my, everyone tells me it's my kitchen. I don't like to be possessive about it, but yes, I take pride in that kitchen. I take pride in how clean it is. But you go into my oven room, and we have probably 8 or 9 pizza ovens that are ready. And I don't say pizza oven, they're an oven that you can cook very good pizzas in. But that's the other thing we teach there, is the cooking aspect. And what it was the fact that my boss and I, because we're chefs, I think this is where I got trailed off. We saw them as cooking vessels, and that we would do events and show people, hey, you can take a saute pan or a cast iron pan, put it in here, pull it out, cook a piece of chicken, do some lamb lollipops, really learning how to multiple use and look at things from a different perspective and utilize things from a different perspective. Showing people that, because we would sell equipment, we sell everything and anything that we have at that place, we will sell it because, we can. So telling people, hey, we do recommend you buying this because it is very good, but you know what? You can make more than just pizza. And that's not just being a sales thing. That's me just being a chef. Like, hey, you can do more than just a piece of, dough, cheese, and sauce, make a roasted chicken, roast some peppers, kill the flame and smoke some tomatoes with the leftover, the embers from your hardwoods. Learn how to utilize the space instead of, oh, well, all we do is make pizza in it, so why do I want to buy one? And some people walk in, they're like, yeah, I just want to buy that one. It's cool. And okay, great. We'll ship it out. But, for us, that whole cooking aspect, we really got to show off our multiple, aspects of who we were as chefs. So it really became more of a home kind of thing. And then the crew that we built, we were all people that were literally not going to give up on this place because we had really become a family, and we definitely are now. But like, we spent a lot of time together, and we're all devoted. We want to see this to succeed, because if the business doesn't succeed, then we're all out of a job, and that sucks, because this is a really fun job. And I'm not going to say there's not tough days, but yesterday I did the full pizzaiola training. I was just there as, help. And then we had a private event that night. And you know what? It was a bit of a long day. I think I worked 12 hours, but that was a very short 12-hour shift, because it was a lot of fun. And, it's more about the training aspect and imparting knowledge to these people while still trying to make sure they have fun, which from all intents and purposes, everyone is, over some of those 8-hour shifts from hell that I've had in the past, even, from a line cook to a manager, there's been those, like, this is just going to be a really long, shift of, it's going to suck. Like, you already know that, it's a full moon out. So all the people think that they can be crazy. And, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious when it comes to stuff like that.
There's no doubt about that. I'm with you. But man, full moon nights, the restaurant just hits different. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, I can honestly think that you could do a, study on returned plates on like a Friday the 13th or a full moon, or God forbid they're on the same day. But yeah, people just go a little, wacky. So, but it's nice teaching these people, and having fun doing it. The hours aren't so bad. I mean, yes, we've had some absolutely insane work weeks, but we're building something. We're literally going from having almost no one walk through the door when we made that decision, because it was winter and it was COVID, and everyone was, we had to do all the sanitizing, this, that, and the other thing. And no one wanted to go out, but we still believed in it. So we kept working, and it's really become like a project of, love, because I get to do so much more now. When that other partner left, my boss, he wants it, he's happy to do what he does, but I know that, he kind of wanted it to be a step away role. And unfortunately that didn't happen, but I've gotten to partially fill into where that guy left and really jump into dough as it is. And my thing is that I think I burned out a lot, because I had done so much cooking that it was just like, it wasn't fun anymore. And it wasn't like, I wasn't growing from it. Like, I was bored. And now getting into bread is a whole nother chemistry. And luckily I've adopted some patience, which I was not known for my patience or my temper. Well, I was known for my temper, but that was because it was bad. Yeah. So also, if you're just an angry person, you need to you don't think you can do it, but let go. Just let go. That whole, screaming about everything, it's not healthy. But we're, it's growing, and we're happy to see it grow, and I can be calm about it and how things, unfold, as it were, with these students going on. So and we're doing amazing right now. We literally have had some really good connections made in the last few weeks. Some of those I cannot talk about because of NDAs. But I mean, we're doing training, and all of a sudden, all of these companies that we were hearing didn't want to do business with us by someone else. All of a sudden, they want to start doing business with us. And you know what? We're more than happy to, because I'm able to start learning new styles, new techniques. I never delved into bread. So that patience to watch it rise. And now, like when we worked at Pinstripes, it was make your dough, ball it up, and get it on the line and start stretching it. You know, I look at that dough that we used back then. That dough it's not good. From my now professional opinion, it's really not good. I was, and I'll give you guys a little background. I also am a certified pizzaiolo, but I've learned really how to make just about every style of pizza that you can make. You know, a bit of a jack of all trades. I always have been, but now I've learned to enjoy fermentation and maturation, and understanding the chemistry was really what sparked my interest, was understanding the carbohydrate breakdown, how to use the enzymes in this malt to take a dough that normally takes, say, 3 to 4 days to in the fridge before you're able to stretch it. And I'm, you know, able to do it in 24 hours, give or take, from the time I start mixing flour to the time it's baked, and I'm still getting the same thing. The challenges and the freedom that I'm given to just, if there's a slow day, I can go play with something. Literally, if I have an idea, you know what? I wonder how this is going to turn out. I have the freedom to just walk into my dough room and be like, well, this is what I'm going to try today. And we're going to do two things. We're either going to make something happen, or we're going to learn what doesn't happen. You know, I've really learned that, you know, there's 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb, is I believe what Edison said. You know, he figured out one, but he had to learn how to make 1,000 of them that didn't work. And that's, you know, part of this whole bread game. You know, I could make a good pizza. I learned how to do volume. I learned how to do it fast, how to work an oven well. This is really just honing the skills when it came to working a wood fire oven. But now there's a whole new universe of pizza out there. I mean, we did Pizza Expo. I didn't know there was a Pizza Expo. I competed last year, but literally 2 years ago, I got certified as a pizzaiolo, you know, and now 2 years later, I'm sitting in as an assistant to a master instructor to teach these people. And he told me, he's like, you're awesome. You're killing it, you know, because he can't, and even I know doing 8 people by yourself is brutal. It's tough because there's so many questions, making sure everyone gets what they need. That's why I'm happy to do it, you know, and I'm happy to show all the things I've learned in those years of working with bad dough. I mean, our dough at our place, we let it sit for a minimum of 24 hours, sometimes 48. And, you know, you're seeing some of those things, and you're seeing that I'm proud of like what I'm doing, because I was getting tired of fish, starch, veg, sauce, fish, starch, veg, sauce. Now pizza, there's no plating. It is what it is. It's just abstract. We tell people, we're making a margarita pizza. Stretch your dough out, get it on, put your little bit of sauce, don't overtop it, throw a couple pieces of cheese on it. Wherever it falls, it falls. Take your basil, tear it in half, throw it on the pizza. Don't overthink it. Okay. That's the best part about pizza. And you can get creative. And now, you know, seeing some of the creations that we've been able to do, we can pull from our chef, you know, lifestyles of flavor combinations and, you know, texture, and learning how to have a dough that is super crunchy and crispy on the outside with a little bit of char, and soft and delicate and light on the inside with these big air holes that's got that sour flavor to it. And then on top, you know, you're doing like a roasted tomato sauce with, you know, whole milk mozzarella, or, you know, fresh mozzarella or clean genie, or finishing it with, you know, arugula, prosciutto, that kind of stuff, a little bit of fresh olive oil. But it's so crazy to see this whole aspect of why pizza started from what it was. Now I know a lot of the history of pizza, from creating Roman style, which is my favorite. Have you ever had Roman style?
No, I've heard you mention it a couple times, and I am intrigued, and that will certainly be one of the first things I ask you to bake up for us whenever we come visit.
Yeah. So, I mean, that Roman style is my favorite, but yeah, it's so much more new territory for me. And now, the pizza scene is not peaked yet. I mean, they're getting into some crazy new, like now whole grain is the new thing. And understanding the litigation between Italy and America, because there's flours that are available in Italy, but we can't get them here in America. And now I understand, reading spec sheets on flours. What am I looking for? What's important to look at? Because you could have handed those to me 2.5 years ago, and I'd look at you like, all right, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, no idea. So I've actually felt that I've become a better person in a sense of now actualizing all the things that I've done in my past, and learning how to use them to train other people is really what kind of is the best part about this job. And having students that have come back to me that I'm still in contact with. I had one guy the other day, he texted me, he goes, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing a pizza competition in, the Northeast." And he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Do it." I was like, I went and did it because literally you have nothing to lose. But to see him that he still has the passion and all this stuff, and that he asked me, what my thought was amazing. It was like, hey, I'm actually making an impact on, these people's lives that, he's transferring out of the Army. And they're doing this thing, they're now doing a training thing, and they're pay for his training. So he came in and he did the 5-day certification, but his master instructor's in Italy. So, but we connected, and, he hits me up all the time for stuff, but I have multiple students that do that. And it's amazing, to see and be able to kind of give them like, okay, this is what everyone thinks it is. And this is what it really is. Like this whole, some of it's song and dance. I expect to see a huge push in artisan pizza after the newest Netflix series that just came out. And now that seems to be the new hot thing on all the channels, is some sort of pizza, whatever. But I mean, learning the chemistry and learning how to do the formulas, how to I break everything down, going from ounces to grams. Oh my gosh, I used to hate that. That was like my biggest thing. Like, what is a kilo? What am I freaking doing here? But now it's
What's
like someone
the point in this? Now you know, though. Now you know.
Yeah. And now I preach it to people. I'm like, listen, switch everything to grams and weigh it all. It makes it so much easier, But yeah, we're building something big. We're developing, massively. We're bringing on more staff. We got a chef to come in, and she's teaching the residential classes. So my boss and I don't have to be there for 14, 16 hours. Not 16, but those crazy hours that you need to be to make sure that everything's open, open and closed. We got a good team. And that's why I enjoy going to work, because I work with people that give a damn. They want to be there. They want to be good at what they do. I have he's my right hand, this guy, Chuck. He's a retired guy, and he's retired, but he doesn't want to sit at home. And he's a certified pizzaiolo. He was a friend of the school. So he'd just come and start working a couple hours. And then it was like, okay, well, I can get him, I can teach him to do stuff because he wants to learn. We have an apprentice. He's actually a kid that I picked up from my trade school that I went to, where actually we had the same instructor. The guy, the chef was still there. And I'm in contact with that school also because I'm on the board of advisories, or yeah, I'm on the culinary board of advisory or something. But I saw him in me, so I'm trying to train him too. But I'll be honest, it's easier to train a 65-year-old man with a better work ethic than it is to train one of these kids nowadays. As much as he's a great kid, he really is. He's got passion, he's got drive. He's an 18-year-old kid. I remember those days. I was driven, but I was still distracted. I thought that things, I should have jumped into the deep end when I got out of high school and, got some crazy job, but 2020. But I'm trying to still direct him in the same direction of like where he needs to go. We're like, hey, we're a great, start to your training, but we tell him, we're like, you need to go into a full service, high volume restaurant. I literally told him, I go, you need to go get your ass kicked. You need to, experience the hard days, the good days, and realize that not every day is going to be, you're not going to be flawless every day. Hell, you're going to be lucky if you can have one flawless day a year, of that perfect service. If you're really doing good numbers, if you're not doing the numbers and you're having a perfect service, you're just not busy enough, and in all my years, I still think that like our example of what that was in Overland Park, like I understand the need to do sales, but the thing that drives me nuts is when you start to sacrifice service and quality for the dollar amount. It's like, I don't care if we can bring in another 50 people if I don't have the right food to properly feed them, because they're going to be more pissed that half the menu is gone than the fact that, oh, well, they're just closed. I mean, but the manager sees, oh, that's just dollars that aren't coming through the door. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just not the right way. That whole dollar, covers money. I get it. I understand that. I understand how you pay your bills. But like, if you're getting crushed, you got to get to a point where you're like, this is just going to be bad for us in general. It's going to demoralize the staff. And I think that's also a big thing that's going on now is, no one wants to work, but so many people left the kitchen because I believe of the lifestyle that we expect of them and for the money that we pay. People don't understand, like, that pork chop has to pay for your linen, your laundry, the services, the water, the gas, the electricity. You're not just paying for a pork chop. You're paying for that stuff so that your green beans are paying for the line cook to get paid. So that little appetizer, well, that just paid 1 hour of my dish guy. Thank you. But like, you said about this industry, like we're expected to work in, what's the word I'm looking for, in like extreme conditions, for God's sakes. I mean, you're standing on the line, it's 110 degrees in the summer, and God forbid you're standing in front of a wood fire oven or a charcoal grill or a stove and a fryer. I mean, there were some days that it was damn near unhealthy and probably like illegal to work, but people want to get fed, and that expectation of, oh, well, they're just cooks. That's what they do. A lot of the cooks that I've worked with have been amazing people. They have family, they brought their family up from Mexico. They built, they're a reliable employee, but just because they're a cook, they're just a cook, and I think that was part of, the issue is that the cooks got tired of just being treated like cooks. And like, you know what, you're going to get your $12 an hour, this, that. And I'm not saying that, they don't deserve a raise. I think this whole minimum wage thing, though, is a little bit much because, you look at some of the people that have been making that wage and that was something they were proud to have. I got a raise, I started at $12. Now I'm making 15. And now I got, the guy that just walked in the door, doesn't do anything and he's making the same amount. I think that was really, for me, that was a punch in the gut. Like just giving everyone what I'd worked for, yes, maybe I should, in that situation, that person should make more money, but the margins on your sales just got smaller because now everyone's making that $15 instead of having a couple $12 employees and having some labor gap money. That's all just eaten up by everyone's got to make $15. Great. Don't complain when I throw another $3 on that burger that you want to buy and deconstruct and then reconstruct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that the silver lining to what the pandemic has done to the restaurant business is we're going to see a seismic shift when it comes to how these companies view their employees, how these companies treat their employees, how these companies pay their employees, and how these companies respond to their guests as well. And I think that we're starting to see that because owners are not putting up with crap anymore when it comes to people that are walking into their restaurant. The people that they have there, like you're saying, want to be there for the most part, and they're at least loyal enough to show up for their shift, unlike most of them. And so they're operating at 50% capacity, not because they're forced to by the government anymore, but because that's all the staff that they can even have. They're running with 2 line cooks and the manager back there, and they have hopefully a hostess, a bartender, and a server that are trying to serve 50 something people. And we're going to see an adjustment, I think, to where people are starting to recognize and appreciate those companies. It's become very apparent the companies that take care of their people because they're not short staffed, because they're operating still at a very high level. My wife and I dined out at a nice place in Kansas City, in the downtown area. And this is an area that has struggled for years and years and years, but there's a particular restaurant down there that's been there for a while. And we had a wonderful experience. You could tell the place was fully staffed. Everybody was happy, having fun. The food came out. It was all cooked perfectly and delicious. And they took great care of us. Even saw the manager on the floor. And it was refreshing to see that because, we almost completely stopped dining out because just getting even a below average experience became the expectation versus what it was before. But I do think that companies are starting to shift and starting to treat managers much better. You certainly see pretty significant pay raises. In the consulting business, I keep up with what the market averages are, and you've seen $20,000 to $30,000 a year increases in management salaries, almost across the board from assistant manager. If you're paying an assistant manager anymore $40,000 a year, good luck at the applicants that you've got walking through your door. Yeah. And then GMs, you're looking starting out at the 75 and up to 100K, and if you're listening to this and you're in the restaurant business right now and you're a GM and you're not getting paid that, you need to start negotiating, because you should be. If you're expected to be there 60 to 70 hours a week, constantly be on call, answering emails, hopping into meetings, filling in on your line when your line cooks aren't there, like, you need to be asking for more money, or you need to be asking for the resources to make sure that you're not having to work those kind of hours. Right. Because having gotten out of the business myself entirely, you've gotten into a position where you really enjoy what you do and you're not being abused in the daily basis that you used to be. It's just, your life just opens up. It's butterflies and sunshine, and you have so much more time with family and friends, and to work on hobbies, and to do side projects like a podcast. Like, these are the things that I would have never been able to do under most of my previous jobs. And that's even with some of the good ones I had. And I hope that there's a reckoning coming from some of the companies that I used to work for, because I know how they treat people. And I hope that these senior level executives that are taking home $250,000 a year in salary, add on another $250,000 a year in bonuses based off of bonuses that they basically just set up for themselves. Right. And meanwhile, all the people that are doing all the actual work and talking to the guests and bringing those people in the door time and time and time again are making pennies on the dollar compared to that. it's time to completely restructure the way that these large corporate entities are run. And like, fuck them. Like, they can go out of business for all I care. The problem is the economy set up. Now I'm getting on my soapbox, but as you know, these guys have unbelievable purchasing power because they can go to, X chicken corporation, say, I'm going to buy 1 million pounds of chicken breast for you this year if you give it to me at this price. And, local Joe Schmo on the corner there is paying 5 times that amount for that chicken breast. And so just as you're saying that pork chop pays for, line cook for an hour, like chicken breast goes a lot more ways at a cheesecake factory than it does at your corner restaurant. Right. And so, I hope that we can find this balance to where the corporate entities should exist and they deserve to exist. Don't get me wrong. But I hope that there's a shift to these mom and pop places because they are fully staffed, because they care about their employees. They're taking care of their people, because they are supporting the local community. They are one in the community, and they don't have these overly bloated senior executives that aren't actually doing anything good for anyone in the company. And that's not to say that as a whole, that's how corporate restaurant exists, but maybe you feel differently. I would say probably 80+% of the stuff that I dealt with when it came to executives were just clueless as to what was actually happening in the restaurant at any given time.
Yeah, I would like to completely agree. I mean, I'll say that at one of my, places, if we did a cover, 350 covers, say on a Friday night, and we had one complaint, I would get 4 phone calls from, if the executive chef wasn't there, he'd call me. The regional manager would call me. I had the GM call me. And sometimes I'd even have the president of the company call me to see what the hell was wrong. And I'm like, really? I need four people for one bad dish on a night that we did $22,000. One guest, one bad review. And I think that was, like you said, the pushback, is coming. And I think it needs to come more, but these corporate chains, they, the customer's always right. And I think also as a society, we need to get away from that, because that's kind of what's created a lot of these other problems. I'll say it is, not everyone's right. Sometimes people are just assholes. I mean, it's as simple as that. People just like that feeling of entitlement and this and that. And now I'm going to start on my soapbox. But, that was another part of the reason why I got out, was I was tired of always being wrong. Like, even if we were flawless, that little thing was the way down, because 4 people came down on me for, someone didn't know what bouillabaisse was until we put the, screaming hot cast iron pot full of, crab legs, fish, mussels, shrimp, scallops on the table. Oh, this isn't what I ordered. Yes, it is.
I'm allergic to shellfish. What is this?
There you go. Can I get the bolognese no meat? I've actually had that as a legit order, and I almost smacked the server stupid. Like, you don't know when there's meat in it. Like, that's the whole point, is it's a meat sauce. But yeah, it's nuts.
No doubt. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. We've been on here for a little bit, but what's going on? What's coming up for Dan? What are you doing, either personally, professionally, both? What do you got going on?
So personally, I'm currently just working on this house, first house. So we're repainting everything because it was some really gaudy colors. Professionally, we're just getting ready for the fall, and then wintertime. We got a lot of consultations on the books. We're just constantly busy building that. We're having a lot of fun, but we're also making sure that we're still on the cutting edge of stuff, because honestly, we have to be. And I'm excited for that, because it's a whole new, more chapters to learn about. We're looking at the bigger side of volume, production and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see where it goes. And I think for the first time, I'm not like scared shitless about a big, massive change like this. That was always my big problem, was change would just make me panic. And now I'm like, we're going to do something big with this. This is going to be huge. And, maybe later on when, I could talk about it, I will be happy to, but there's really a lot going on and a little going on at the same time, because it's like we're waiting for all the chips to fall in the right way for that path to go through. So I just know that we're going to be doing consultations. We're going to be building up classes. We're going to be doing some new stuff, always playing with new equipment. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I've learned not to overthink the future too much, because that's where you overthink everything. So, just, hey, this is today. It's what we're going to do. It's going to be a great day. And I'm going to get to play with something new, or I'm going to get to learn something new. Has just been pretty much what I've been doing day to day. Like, that's just my outlook on things.
Very cool.
So,
Well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. So glad when you reached out and said you want to be a part of this, because what you do is special, and I'm excited to share this with everybody else. So, everybody, Dan, thank you so much.
thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that we got to do this. It went, it was great. I'm glad I got to tell some stories, and there's a million more to go with it. So awesome.
We'll have another round. Thank you, sir.
All right. See you later.